Montego Bay, St. James, a city built on tourism brochures and postcard sunsets. But beneath the polished images lies another history, one written in gunfire, fear, and blood. In the early to mid-2000s, as hotels expanded along the coastline and visitors flowed in from overseas, entire inner-city communities on the hillsides and outskirts of the parish were descending into lawlessness. Salt Spring, Norwood, Glendevon, and the rugged section known as Megatop became names whispered with dread, places where death could come at any hour, and justice was something people stopped believing in. It was from this environment that Eldon Calvert emerged, a young man born around 1983 in the Megatop area of Salt Spring, who would go on to become one of the most feared figures Western Jamaica had seen in decades. Calvert was not born famous or notorious. He came from a working-class background in a community long plagued by poverty, political tension, and gang influence. Megatop was one of those places where young men grew up fast, where survival often meant choosing a side, and where violence was not shocking, but expected. By the early 2000s, several criminal groups were already operating in St. James, but none would leave a mark as deep and as terrifying as the Stone Crusher Gang. By 2005, Eldon Calvert was being identified by police and residents alike as the reputed leader of this growing criminal network, a gang that would soon dominate Salt Spring and spread its influence into Norwood and Glendevon. The Stone Crusher Gang was not known for petty crimes. From the beginning, their reputation was built on extreme violence. According to police intelligence and later media reports, the gang enforced its control through intimidation, targeted killings, and open gun attacks. Witnesses were silenced, rivals eliminated, and entire communities forced into submission. Between 2005 and 2006, the gang was linked to what police describe as serial killer-level violence, with Eldon Calvert allegedly at the center of it all. By this time, his name alone was enough to empty streets and shut doors. The year 2005 marked the beginning of a sustained wave of bloodshed that would define Calvert's rise. Shootings became frequent in Salt Spring and surrounding districts. Men were gunned down in public spaces, in their homes, and along lonely roads. Police later stated that Calvert was implicated in numerous murders during this period, though many cases never made it to court due to fear among witnesses and lack of cooperation. Still, word spread quickly. This was not random violence. It was organized, deliberate, and ruthless. By January 2006, events took an even darker turn. That month, Eldon Calvert's brother was murdered, an act that would trigger one of the most horrific reprisals in modern Jamaican gang history. The killing of his brother was seen as a direct challenge, an insult that demanded retaliation. In the world Calvert operated in, revenge was not optional. It was mandatory. What followed would shock even a nation already accustomed to violent crime. Sometime later in 2006, in the Flower Hill area near Salt Spring, 5 men were hunted down and killed in what police described as a reprisal attack ordered by Calvert. The victims were Johan Cole, Devin Harris, Lloyd Ishmael, Leston Morris, and Ransford McFarlane. According to investigators, the men were shot execution style, but one act stood out above the rest. Devin Harris was beheaded, and his severed head was taken from the scene and later dumped approximately 9 miles away. This gruesome detail sent a chilling message across St. James. The Stone Crusher Gang was not only killing, they were mutilating, humiliating, and terrorizing. The Flower Hill massacre cemented Eldon Calvert's reputation as a man capable of extreme brutality. Communities that had once whispered his name now spoke it with outright fear. Parents warned their children to stay inside. Residents avoided eye contact with strangers. Even hardened criminals understood that crossing Calvert could mean a death far worse than a gunshot. Police later stated that this single incident alone showed the level of control and cruelty exercised by the Stone Crusher leadership. As 2006 progressed, the violence did not slow down. Instead, it intensified. In September 2006, a deadly cluster of murders rocked Megatop, Calvert's own hometown. According to police reports, Eldon Calvert was allegedly involved in the killing of 4 individuals in that community. The victims were identified as James Crichton, a man known as Cancer Jarrett, Eldon Register Hooper, and Horace Daly. These killings were carried out within a short period, further destabilizing an already traumatized area. Residents later told reporters that gunshots had become so common that people no longer rushed to windows or called police. Silence had become a survival tactic. Just days later, on September 10, 2006, another double murder would push Calvert deeper into the national spotlight. On that day, cookshop operator Robert Green from Mount Salem, St. James, was shot and killed in Salt Spring. Another man, identified in some reports as Eldon Legister, also lost his life in the same incident. Calvert was charged along with his brother Gleason Calvert and an associate named Michael Heron. At the time, the case appeared strong. Police believed they finally had enough to bring one of the island's most feared gang leaders before the court. But the bloodshed continued, even as the law closed in. In October 2006, yet another triple murder occurred in Salt Spring. 3 men, Wesley Scott, a 56-year-old golf caddy, Hartley Campbell, a 36-year-old cookshop operator, and Victor Young, a 55-year-old shopkeeper, were killed. Calvert was jointly charged with Arrett Grant in connection with these murders. The killings struck fear, not only because of their brutality, but because of who the victims were. These were working men, business operators, people known in the community. The message was clear. No one was untouchable. In November 2006, the Stone Crusher gang took its violence directly to the state. Gunmen attacked a police vehicle in Salt Spring, opening fire and injuring 3 police officers. It was a bold and dangerous move, signaling that the gang was willing to confront law enforcement head-on. For residents, this attack shattered any remaining sense of security. If the police themselves could be ambushed and shot, then ordinary citizens stood no chance. That same month, on November 13, 2006, another murder added a sinister layer to the unfolding story. Hartley Campbell, an alleged eyewitness to the September 10th killing of Robert Green, was shot and killed in Salt Spring. Police quickly suspected that this was not a random act, but a calculated effort to eliminate a key witness. The killing of Campbell would later play a central role in one of the most controversial criminal trials in Jamaican history. December 2006 brought yet more bloodshed. In the Bocto Lane area of Salt Spring, taxi operator Errol Dixon and a shopkeeper identified as Raymar Reed were shot and killed. Once again, Eldon Calvert was linked to the murders. By the end of 2006, police were openly stating that Calvert was connected to at least 14 to 20 murders within a 2-year period. The scale of the violence was unprecedented for Western Jamaica. Public pressure mounted as bodies continued to fall. By November 2007, the Jamaica Constabulary Force placed a $1 million bounty on Eldon Calvert's head, the highest reward offered at the time. He topped the island's most wanted list, described by police as the alleged leader of the Stone Crusher gang and one of the most dangerous criminals in the country. His face circulated on wanted posters. His name dominated headlines. Yet despite the manhunt, he remained free. That freedom came to an end on January 21, 2008. In a pre-dawn raid led by Operation Kingfish, security forces stormed a 6-bedroom, 1-story house in the quiet farming community of Woodgrove, near Waitabit, in neighboring Trelawney. The contrast could not have been more striking. This was not a volatile inner-city garrison, but a rural area where residents tended their farms and expected peace. Few suspected that Jamaica's most wanted man was hiding among them. When police entered the house, they found Eldon Calvert along with 2 men and a woman. According to a police source, the feared gangster broke down. He reportedly wept and begged officers not to kill him as he was taken into custody. There was no shootout, no final stand. The man who had terrorized entire communities was captured without a single shot being fired. News of the arrest spread quickly. Woodgrove residents expressed shock and relief. One man reportedly said he had no idea a wanted man was living in a wee backyard. Another family member of the homeowners claimed Calvert had been staying in the house without their knowledge. Despite the fear, there was a sense of satisfaction that the threat had been removed. Police transported Calvert to Kingston for questioning, along with the other occupants of the house. Operation Kingfish later confirmed that Calvert had been the main target of recent operations, including one in Tivoli Gardens, where several men were killed during a shootout with security forces. His capture was seen as a major victory in the fight against organized crime. With Calvert behind bars, many believed justice would finally be served. He was brought before the St. James Home Circuit Court, where the most prominent case against him was the murder of Robert Green. The trial was presided over by Justice Gloria Smith. The prosecution's case relied heavily on an 8-page witness statement allegedly given by Artley Campbell before his death in November 2006. But as the trial progressed, cracks began to appear. The defense team hired a handwriting expert, Beverly Heast, to examine the statement. Her findings were explosive. According to her testimony, the statement had been forged. Dates were altered after Campbell's death, and the signature did not match known samples. The implication was devastating. The investigating officer, Detective Sergeant Michael Zierger, was accused of fabricating evidence. The courtroom erupted in disbelief as the truth unfolded. Justice Smith described the situation as a sad day in the history of justice. Detective Sergeant Serjou fled the island and was later charged with perjury and forgery. The case collapsed. In February 2012, the murder charges against Eldon Calvert, his brother Gleason, and Michael Heron were dismissed. The fallout was massive. The scandal led to changes in how Jamaican courts handled statements from deceased witnesses, including new requirements for handwriting analysis. But for many citizens, the damage was already done. A man believed responsible for dozens of murders was walking free, not because he was innocent, but because the system had failed. In March 2012, Eldon Calvert was granted bail in the amount of $3 million. Conditions were imposed, including daily reporting to the Freeport police station, a curfew, and the surrender of his travel documents. The Director of Public Prosecutions did not oppose bail, citing serious concerns about the integrity of the case. When Calvert returned to Salt Spring, tensions immediately flared. Many residents were angry and afraid. Protest and unrest followed. Violence soon erupted again. Roy Dale Hall was shot, stabbed, and beaten to death amid the turmoil. While his killing was not directly attributed to Calvert, it underscored how volatile the situation had become. Police and soldiers were deployed in large numbers to restore order. For the next 2 years, Eldon Calvert lived under the shadow of his past. Many of his alleged lieutenants had been killed in police operations. The Stone Crusher gang had been weakened, but not erased. Old enemies remained. In the underworld, debts are rarely forgiven, and reputations do not fade. On September 9, 2014, the story reached its violent conclusion. Eldon Calvert, 31 years old, was shot and killed during an incident at a football field in Salt Spring, St. James. Others were also wounded in the attack. The man once described as a crime boss, extraordinaire, died in the same community where his reign of terror began. The violence did not end with his death. In the months that followed, police charged Damaine Samuels, also known as Damage or Dam, in connection with Calvert's murder. Samuels had reportedly fled Jamaica after the shooting and was later deported from the Bahamas. He was identified in an identification parade and formally charged. Another man accused in the case, Ackroy Sterling, was later shot and killed in Hanover while on bail. Eldon Calvert's life and death stand as a stark reminder of the cost of unchecked violence. His rise brought fear and suffering to entire communities. His fall exposed deep flaws in the justice system, and his end, like that of so many others in this series, came violently and far too young. In the end, the legacy he left behind was not power or respect, but shattered lives, grieving families, and a warning written in blood that crime does not pay.